And now, ladies and gentlemen,
Put your thumbs up and say it's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, Tickety Boo, everything's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, son. Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Welcome to another episode of Tickety Boo. Today we're talking about walking away and how it isn't always clarity. Sometimes it's chaos. It's that gut-wrenching mix of knowing something isn't right but still wanting it to keep going. It's the back and forth, the push and pull. You leave but you wonder if you gave up too soon. You stay but you feel like you're losing yourself in whatever it is. Walking away can feel like freedom and grief in the same breath. And it's not just about leaving a person, a job, a version of yourself. It's about letting go of the hope that it could have been different. Guys, can I ask you, have you ever walked away from something, not because you really wanted to, but you just knew that you didn't really have a choice but to do that? Who wants to go first?
I've walked away from people, friendship groups before now.
It's quite hard to do that, isn't it?
Yes, yes it is. But it was what needed to be. And I've walked away from work situations where I used to undertake things through people pleasing because I felt I couldn't say no. And then I got to a point at work where I was sort of, I don't know whether walking away is the right word, but I was just picking and choosing what I would get involved with. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's not walking away, but
making a choice.
It's making a choice,
You're choosing yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even, what about yourself, Iona?
Yeah, I can think of two very obvious ones that spring to mind. And one took a really long time to walk away. Like, it was a relationship that, like, I knew it wasn't healthy and I knew I needed to get out. And I was asking other people, when do you know when's the right time to leave? And the most annoying piece of advice I was given the entire time was, you'll know when it's right. It was like, oh, that's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted someone to tell me, like, you do it now. I did eventually do it, and it did it very abruptly. It did leave me as a single mum with a young child, but that was really hard. But I knew that I shouldn't be in that relationship any longer, but it was really hard to leave.
I suppose the question I want to ask was that feeling, the feeling of struggle. Leaving, did it feel worse, or staying in what you were feeling? What was the strongest?
Staying in would have been worse.
Yeah.
And I knew that. And then if I think of other situations, whether it's been relationships or to stay would have been worse. And also, I'm grateful for all the choices I've made that got me to this point. So for anyone listening, it's like, oh, but I don't know what I'll do, whether it's work, whether it's relationship, whatever it is, whether it's the friendship group. It always is better on the other side of this. Like it has been again and again for me. That even if it hasn't felt like it, because maybe I've been forced to leave a situation that I maybe didn't want to as well. It's always ended up being like, I wouldn't be the person I am today if it hadn't been for like a number of endings.
Can I just tell a little therapy room story about both? It links into both questions that you just asked about walking away and how it felt. Right, a client of mine, absolutely incredible lady. Anybody else would look up to her, but she looks back at her life and she doesn't understand her value, but she was in a situation when she was 18 years old and she was a heroin addict. She'd gone through a life of sexual abuse and emotional instability, not having her basic, emotional needs met by parents. And she was a troubled young lady and, back. And she found herself in this drug den. And the one day she took some heroin and she just couldn't get a hit off the heroin. She was smoking it, everybody else was injecting it. And somebody within that flat had come up and said, take this as well. It will give you a faster and a longer hit. And at that point, she knew it was time to walk away. Mm-hmm. And she looks back at that with kind of regret. And I look back at it and just think, what an incredible person. She's a business owner. She's got a lovely family. She's done a lot of that on her own.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an example of where walking away, and she got instant relief. She walked away. She never went back to the drugs. And one of the things that we did in the therapy room was we said, go back to that 18-year-old person that walked out that room now, and you tell her where you are now, what you've done with those choices.
Mm.
And do you think she would have ever envisaged you being where you are now?
Mm.
And that is the power of walking away
Yeah.
and choices.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite an extreme but also powerful story.
Absolutely. She's somebody that I think is, from the depths of where she was, she's recovered so incredibly. I think she'd be a great mentor.
Yeah.
Or somebody to have on the show even.
I think most people will agree, although they were very torn and found it very difficult, walking away always turned out to be the best thing to do.
Yeah, and if we think of it, rather than walking away, and am I going to walk away? It's like, think of it as what am I walking towards?
It's a good phrase.
Yeah, because whether it's a forced walking away or you're being booted, it's like what's the new opportunity? Sometimes that could, but it's like, yeah, what am I walking towards? And so, I mean, look what that woman accomplished, what she walked towards, which, I mean, it's amazing. It's an extreme story sometimes helps hit home with the polarity of it, and
That's
the
it.
contrast.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, we wouldn't be looking at walking away if things were right.
Yeah.
If we're in a harmonious place where we felt we belonged, we wouldn't be walking.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always a reason for it. So to give away your sort of the certainty and the comfort of familiarity that you've got, normally there's got to be a real reason.
And it's taking, as we said, I think it was in the last episode or the one before, again, it's about choosing yourself, isn't it? It's like...
Yeah, it always fascinates me that we find it so difficult to choose ourselves in situations. Some people go, well, that's because you're kind and you think about other people, but a lot of time it's not that, is it? We're actually biting bits of ourselves off, losing parts of ourselves in these situations. It's not always, we very often will lose ourselves in situations just to keep the status quo.
Yeah. And also the reality is that maybe there are elements of what you're walking away from that were bad, but there's a whole lot of it that was pretty good, and it's not easy to leave behind because sometimes you have to sacrifice some good bits for the greater good and getting rid of that bad bit.
Are they good bits, or is it us just romanticising the potentials and what it could have possibly been?
Yeah.
Do you know, I ended up in a conversation with a client the other day on Zoom, and the session was to be nothing about relationships. We're working on something completely different, and she came on and she was ranting and raving and this, that and the other, and it turned out she'd had an argument with a boyfriend that she lives with. I was like, do you want to talk about it? And she's like, yep. So I let her go for a period of time. And she was going, he just doesn't get it. If he could just do this for me, if he would just see my point of view, if he could just do this, everything could be absolutely fantastic.
Wow. So again, there's two things that we can change. One is how we react. One is our actions, and the other one is our reactions. Actions and reactions. So when you start to allow how you're going to feel or your thought process to be dictated by another person, we're kind of handing our power over. That's not
well, I said to her, I said, answer me this question. If you knew that you were 100% safe and everything was going to work out absolutely fine, what would you do? And she went, I'd leave.
Yeah. I love that question. It's a great question to ask of people, isn't it?
And I went, okay, so how does that make you feel now? She's like, but I'm not going to leave yet because I still think he can change and do what I need him to do, romanticising the potential of the situation. And I think in that turmoil of been prepared to walk away from something, whether it's a relationship, a job, an opportunity, whatever it may be, business, is it's so easy to fall into that trap of what it could be, what it should be, what it's set out to be, and clinging on to that hope whilst living in absolute misery is a trap that we fall into as human beings. You know, bit of a metaphor, flogging the dead horse.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It doesn't always have to be as extreme. We've used some really extreme examples here. And sometimes it may not even be that somebody's settling for a life. Let's say someone's got an amazing career, like everything's really great and they really love it, and they've just got this little niggle. So let's say they're not even leaving. It's not that it's just good enough or it's only good. Maybe their life is really great and this is everything they've strived for, but then an opportunity comes along and they've really got to think, like, this is really amazing here, but if I go there, what could happen? So it's not that they're holding on out of obligation or they're holding on out of romanticizing, but that could be sort of also a positive, like weighing up the pros and cons. Do I continue with this amazing, great life I've got here, or career, or do I go here? So sometimes walking away doesn't always have to be painful, extreme choices, whether it's drugs or whether it's getting out of an unhealthy relationship. It can actually be your choose, because I do like talk about you choosing good or great, but it could be that everything is great.
But then you have this other part where, in a decision to walk away, you're then having to consider the consequences on somebody that you have got something great with.
It may not necessarily be relationships that I was referring to there.
Or employer.
And that's the thing.
But I also think we need to look, what we tried to do in this episode is look at it from both sides of the coin, so we're not sort of demonising a group of particular people. And there's those that struggle to walk away, don't walk away and stay much longer than they should do. But there's another group of people that walk away when something is good and is right, whether you want to call that abandonment or avoidant or independence or hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
So there's two ways of thinking, isn't there? Because there's these people that like to keep everything light and surface level, and if it gets too complicated, they're gone. And we need to talk about that as well, because I think that's equally as important. So do you know anybody, or have you even done that yourself? It's something I see a lot in the therapy room.
Yes.
And I normally find that the people that tend to flee quickly, that walk away too quickly from things, is because if anything is simple, certain and non-chaotic, it doesn't feel safe to them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
some people like the drama and they think that's what a healthy relationship is, or they think that they thrive on that chaos.
Yeah.
Or also they don't, or it suddenly got hard and they don't want to work on it. It's like, oh my God, I can't do this. And so it's like...
But if you're the friend, the relative, the partner of that person who's calm, normal, nice, peaceful, thoughtful, that person walking away like that really emotionally messes with the other person, doesn't it? And that's why I think it's really important that we look at both sides of the coins with this. Is that person independent, or are they fleeing from what they doesn't feel familiar?
Valid question. Either or both.
I'd say definitely it's what they've learnt about relationships. They never end well, so before they hurt me, I'll go. I want to be the one to make the decision. It could be, it's being scared of vulnerability. They don't want to open up and let anybody really in. Some of it's self-esteem. Some of it's they won't. If I get too close, they won't like what they see.
Or confusing self-protection with self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Actually blowing things up.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. I can look back certainly a lot earlier in life where I blew up connections that would have been much healthier and better for me. Blew up's probably not the right word. Didn't water the garden. If nurture those relationships because they were normal or deemed at the time to be boring or not full of uncertainty and chaos. We've talked about certain friendship groups when we were growing up where it was anything but peaceful.
Yes.
But we gravitated around it because we're kind of that tribal, it's chaos, stick together kind of vibe. But there were other people that were actually really good people going places in life, be like, this doesn't really do anything for me. And you kind of walk away from it.
Well, often people like that, they're good people, they're secure. And for other people, they can be misread as being clingy or too much because they're not backing away, which is making you want to chase them. So, yeah.
But also sometimes the thing that people are pursuing is they really want connection badly, but then they also keep walking away from the thing they think they want because they don't feel the connection's there unless they're chasing. But that's like, do you remember there's the saying, like a rolling stone gathers no moss?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you've got to stay, you've got to work through it. And I know from having travelled a lot, I have like lots of really great friends all over the place, but then it's like there was a point when I was younger, not all of those connections lasted because, well, it was before we had like smartphones and all that. I mean, I've reconnected with some of them, but we've got to build community and connection, and so we've got to be in it and we've got to commit.
Yeah, I think either side of the coin, I think sitting in discomfort sometimes can be harder than walking away.
Yeah, of course, because it's the nostalgia that keeps you there, and nostalgia, like you says, romanticising. Absolutely,
I think one of the hardest things
familiarity
I've had to do is walk away from certain family relationships. Because you work and you work and you strive and you strive and you try and keep it going and you keep feeding it and you're like, and you get nothing back. Not that you do it to expect anything back, but you get what I say. It's so much energy's going in, but it's not reciprocated.
Well, of course, that can be on them offloading their beliefs on you, normally limiting, that's no good. It's the negativity. And it affects your mindset and stops you going places.
Well, I think in certain groups, it's that they're only interested in you when there's drama.
Yes.
They want you to fix their drama or get pulled into their drama. And you're like, I don't want to be part of this circus that you keep, I'm not a performing clown that keeps stepping into your world. I'm going to walk away from your chaos, where certainly me as a bit of the saviour syndrome, I want to come in and fix it all for you.
Of course, and people see that.
Yeah.
And of course, that's why people are able to talk with their feet. And I'm going to say, I'll put that into context. And what it is, if you imagine a small child running away from you, the minute a small child thinks you're going to chase them, they'll run away, expecting it. But the minute that they turn around and you're not chasing them and they realise that they haven't got your full attention because they're running, they'll stop and they'll turn. And that's kind of how people continue to work as adult and relationships. So it's, I think we've gone off on. Well, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but it's.
But I think if we're talking about running away, but fundamentally we're layering back into relationships, whether they be interpersonal, business, and I think there's two peoples. There's those that stay and there's those that run. Those that stay choose to do so until a certain point or boundary is constantly breached. But there's those that run before it gets familiar, comfortable, vulnerable.
Well, the ones that run, normally, I mean, that's a learned behaviour. That's how they think they'll be safe. It's like putting up their walls. And it takes work to stay, and you have to be willing to look at, once you realise, if you're the runner, let's say, once you've realising that you're the runner, then you can look at why. Why is that a learned behaviour? Why does this make me feel safe?
There's people that if you're going through something in your life and maybe you're a bit emotional or you need a bit of support, there's those that will lean into you and there's those that will evaporate
Yeah.
and disappear.
Yeah, very much so.
And I'm not saying those people are bad. Maybe they don't know what to say or how to say it, or they just don't deal with their own emotions, so they're certainly not going to sit with yours.
Kind of going off a bit, but on exactly the same tone. There was people that I used to. There's 3 or 4 people that spring to mind, and they'd ask me to look at a job for them, and I'd go and look at a job for them. And I'd run backwards and forwards, and then I'd give them a price once, and then I'd see them in the street, and obviously they weren't happy with the price, which is absolutely fine. They've asked me to give them a price. I've put the effort. I've done what they asked me, but then rather than because they'd found somebody cheaper or whatever, they'd just walk past you in the street and blank you. Oh yeah, that happens a lot. And rather than just facing it and have that awkwardness of good morning and speaking to you, they'd rather put the wall up and run past it because they don't want that simple, awkward interaction. For me, it's not awkward. It's not a problem at all. But that's kind of links into what you were saying a little bit.
Yeah. How many chances do we give people before we go, do you know what? Now, we've talked in previous episodes about your gut and what your gut's telling you. I mean, how long, typically, I will stay normally beyond what my gut has been telling me, benefit of the doubt, they'll change, it will get better, they'll not do it again. And surprise, surprise, things don't change. Are you like that, or are you able to kind of go, I can see it for what it is?
I would like to say I can see it for what it is, and thinking of the concept of walking away as what am I choosing and what am I walking towards, and then also think of that as valuing yourself, but also that's empowering, and you can have the energy to do something. We've talked in previous episodes, I think it was the last one, what is inspiring, what empowers you, or what drains your energy. Walking away, depending on the situation, whether it's work or relationship, you will actually end up having more energy to do the things you want to do, pursue the goals, the job, the relationship, or the life that you want, as opposed to being stuck in a situation where so much of your energy is spent on just getting through or surviving or doing the thing you don't want to do. I mean, there's so many reasons and scenarios that we could choose to walk away from, but we will then have the energy to actually do something that will be better, greater.
So are we saying if it costs you your energy and your peace,
Yes.
and consistently,
Yeah.
costs you your energy and your peace, is that the time where you go,
I think
I
so.
walk away? I mean, there are those that are very good at sitting down and going, look, this is the situation for me. When you do X, when you do Y, it makes me feel like, can we talk about it? And then there's those that just don't do that and just remove themselves.
Yeah. But you're asking somebody to look inside themselves and reflect, be accountable, reflect, and that's not always an easy thing to do for everybody. So I can see that.
Some people slow fade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's those that just will tell you.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely at a point in my life where if something, I'm thinking in personal relationships, like friendships, where if one of us is triggered or annoyed or is feeling disrespected or whatever it is by someone else, the friendships that I have now in my 50s is so, like, I can reach out and go, let them know so we can talk our way through it, but that comes with emotional growth, emotional intelligence.
Maturity,
you have to get to a point where you don't take it personally. I know when I was getting married, so I had a number of bridesmaids, and actually my friend phoned before we started recording. She actually had the courage to say to me, she actually said no, because actually I'm not feeling supported enough that I actually really want to be a bridesmaid. I could have taken that totally the wrong way. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's actually right. I hadn't been showing up enough for her. And it wasn't that she was demanding more of my friendship than I was willing to give. I hadn't been there a lot for her. So I went to visit her with a bunch of flowers and said, I'm really sorry. Totally took that on. I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And yeah, and she phoned me. So what's that? That was in 2010. And she phoned me just before we started recording today. So, like, we are really good friends. So I think when you have deep honest communication with those who are ready and willing to hear it, and you've got that emotional intelligence yourself. And I think, again, was it in the last episode or the one before? I talked about that psychological tool where you can download it, and it's about all the different feelings. So you can start to work through, even if you're not going to do it with the family, but start to journal on and notice, so you can start to name your feelings. Because sharing from a place of love and compassion with someone like my friend did with me, she wasn't challenging, she wasn't telling me where to go, she wasn't saying anything bad, but she was absolutely right. So I got to choose to look at how I'd been behaving, and I took that on.
Do you think sometimes we delay walking away through the fear of missing out?
Yes, FOMO, absolutely.
Yeah.
We all have a fear of missing out to a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, I always leave it way too long to walk away because, as I say, I disrespect. If I feel disrespected, that's when I'll go. But I'll let it build up, and I'll let so many things happen, and then when it's done, it's done. When it's done, it's done. I can turn it off, but I'll stay way too long. And in reality, I could have faded and salvaged something, but I stayed too long until that one straw broke the camel's back, and that was it. I was done. So yeah, there is that, and I think part of that probably is a degree of, I don't know. We say FOMO, but again, I think it goes back to romanticising the potential.
Yeah, it does. What if they suddenly change and become this amazing person, and I miss out on all these opportunities and things, and blah, blah, blah?
Well, normally they, again, it's not just relationships, but people are given the opportunity beforehand. And then what happens is you explain to them what the issue is, or you try and communicate. And then either, I see that relationship getting closer as scary or dangerous or run away, or they're not on the same page as you. They're not seeking to understand and compromise, or just understand each other and fix the problem. And at that point, you just go, well, I'm wasting my time now.
I think this is where it feeds into really understanding your values.
Yeah.
What are your values?
Yeah.
And sitting behind those values, and rather than having to constantly reinforce boundaries in a situation, go, is this aligned with my values and where I am in my life right now? Is it misaligned? And as it feeds into the last episode, is it misaligned and I'm forcing it now?
Yeah.
And putting too much energy into feeding it.
Another thought I was just having is, what do you think about walking away as being a statement? Maybe sort of a cry for help or a cry for change, but sometimes people say, right, I'm going to leave now, as something to make other people see that you're worth, or...
I think that's a bit manipulative.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. It's
I agree.
Almost like I'm going to go in the corner and have a bit of a strop, and hopefully one of you comes over and asks what's the matter.
Yeah. Whereas if we look at my friend who kindly confronted me, she didn't... And I'm like, oh, yeah, like she could have gone, well, unless you do this, this, and this. I think it's about how we approach it. So she wasn't manipulating me. She was being truthful with kindness. I responded. And so we both knew that was a relationship. We wanted to keep that friendship. But also because of how we both showed up. So I think, announcing I'm going to walk away, I think is...
Well, a lot of people announce it on social media, don't they?
Oh, God.
I'm not following you anymore.
Yeah, DM me, babes. Go away. But sometimes if it's in a job or something like, I've got another job, I'm going, they've offered me X.
I think
it's kind of using walking away maybe as a threat or a bargaining tool.
I think it's when you've got it inside your head, I'll show you. Because that stays with you until you believe they've seen it. But how are you going to know they've seen it?
Yeah.
I think it's more about protecting your own peace and keeping your own personal power than trying to prove a point or hoping that they get it.
Yeah.
Because by hoping that they get it, at a deeper level, part of you is hoping that they'll come back to you at some point and go, do you know what? Actually, you were right all along, so you can feel validated.
Yeah.
Whereas choosing a different job based on they're not respecting me, they're not going to pay me, they're messing me around, then you're choosing it to have your peace and go, right, this is a better opportunity.
The one thing I've learned is when I have chose to walk away, those people are still exactly where I've left them, doing exactly what they were doing back then.
But again, on the other side, there are people I know that have run away from commitment, and And for them, what happens is it's a cycle. They do it again, and it's like a game of emotional musical chairs.
They're still doing it.
Yeah, just going from seat to seat.
Yeah. Generally, that fear of missing out that we were talking about is when you decide that you've got to walk away and you've got no choice, that person will still be back there doing exactly what they were doing back then, unless they've sat down and had a good look at themselves and decided to do the work and change.
Yeah.
And actually your choice was right to protect your peace, to look after yourself, to put your needs and your values.
That's it.
But
Aren't you missing out by not allowing those connections to take place, by running away as soon as things get real? No, I'm not talking about running away from something that's wrong. I'm talking about running away from something that's good.
That's right.
That's
yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're robbing yourself of authentic connection, and you deserve
but
good.
that person has to do the work.
Yeah, they've got to see
we
that.
can only work on ourselves. Each of us can only work on ourselves. So.
Well, that only stops when they decide to stay
yeah.
Yes.
and sit in the discomfort and do the frickin' work.
Yeah.
So there.
But they don't. Well,
Sure.
most of them don't.
Yeah.
But, one day, maybe they will. Okay. Well, that wraps up this rant on Tickety Boo. We look forward to catching up with you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.
If you or someone close to you needs to access mental health support, please contact your GP, or if it's out with normal office hours, get in touch with NHS 24 on 111. Alternatively, contact the Samaritans on 116 123. All calls are free of charge from any phone. You can also find more support information on the Tickety Boo website, ticketyboopodcast.co.uk.